15 epic rap battles of history, all of Season 1. Over the past few months, I've combed through each of these battles and scored them to the best of my abilities in an effort to determine the winners and losers of each episode. And you out there, you wonderful people watching these videos, may think that that's all this is, just a little ranking and analysis channel. How wrong you are. It is now in this Season 1 retrospective where I'll be ranking all 15 battles of the first season from my least favorite to my favorite that I reveal to you all now the true purpose of this channel. Yes, we've been scoring the quality of each rapper's bars, and don't you worry, each season I do plan to do just that, but in the end, I have something much grander that I wanted to determine. For ultimately, the point of my series will not be to determine who won the battle rap, but in fact, who won the rap war. Which actual performer on the ERB channel is the proven best rapper, who is the ultimate winner of epic rap battles of history, the channel. A bold and daunting task, I know, but I think it will actually be fairly simple. See, as we go ahead and rank these first 15 battles from the inaugural first season, you'll notice a separate set of point tallies. These points are for Epic Lloyd, Nice Peter, and the collective guest rappers, as it would be unfair to have even someone like Zach Sherwin split into their own total, since the sheer numbers automatically would favor Lloyd and Peter. The performers will receive a respective tally for each battle win in the series, with team wins awarding points to all parties who featured on that team. And in the rare case of a draw, we'll just give a point to everyone involved to keep the numbers and tallies from getting too messy. These scores will carry over season to season, and as we get closer to the present day, we'll have a greater understanding of not only who won each battle, but of how the quality of the rappers themselves progressed as the series went on, ending in the ultimate retrospective and the final true answer to that burning question at the end of every episode. Who won? Will it be the ferocious, blunt, and brutal rap attack of the no-nonsense Epic Lloyd that seizes the day? Or will it be the chameleon versatility and liquid metal flows of the shapeshifter Nice Peter? Or will quantity prove to be a quality of its own, and will the grand army of guest rappers prove that a variety of unique approaches is truly the winning strategy? Only time and this series right here will be able to tell, so you all better stick around and we better not waste any more time. My placements here will focus less on the quality of the bars themselves and more on the things like costuming, sound design, and thematic cohesion. And to not repeat myself too much, I'll be going through these rankings here relatively quickly since I've talked about all of these battles before in depth, and if you want to hear the bar by bar analysis, you can go and check out the individual episodes. Now, let's start that ranking. Number 15, last place. And for my number 15, it will probably surprise all of maybe that one guy who clicked on this vid and knows nothing about me or ERB and has no idea how he got here. Don't worry, friend, you're safe now. Welcome to the Dark Brotherhood. But my least favorite episode of the season is episode 8, Genghis Khan versus the Easter Bunny. It truly is possibly the worst battle of the whole series, let alone just the first season. That said, revisiting it for my video made me soften on it just a bit. As I stated there, I've realized it's not the whole battle so much as the Easter Bunny that I have issue with. And going back, I was surprised to find some solid stuff in the Genghis Khan verses. Still, the Easter Bunny is just this unmitigated train wreck at the heart of the battle that you can't look away from, and that single-handedly tanks the whole thing. On top of that, it doesn't help how bizarre the actual matchup itself is, and the production as a whole is one of the cheapest looking of the season, i.e. cheapest of the whole series. Lloyd's Khan outfit isn't too bad, but the Easter Bunny again looks like shit, and the Three Wise Homeboys look like they're dressed in whatever the thrift shop had at 9 p.m. on a Thursday. There's also pretty much no special effects to speak of, except Lloyd breaking this egg with the sword in one take. There aren't really any great shots, and the backgrounds are all pretty bland, with the Easter Bunny flower one especially feeling like an old Windows screensaver. As an episode, this is not only the low point of the season, but one of the lowest points of the series, but because of that, it gets this weird charm. I wouldn't call it the Room of ERB episodes, but maybe I'd say it's the Birdemic of the bunch. There's a very real argument that it shouldn't be at the bottom by managing to become one of those things that's so bad that it becomes good. Personally, it doesn't quite make it there for me, but know in my heart that I at least have more affection for it than the next few battles on the list. And I suppose the dubious honor of winning the worst battle of the season goes to Epic Lloyd as Genghis Khan, since Lord knows this abomination wasn't winning, and you guys overwhelmingly felt the same, with pretty much everyone voting Khan, barring the token troll votes that are to be expected for a character like the Bunny. Number 14. While the bottom spot for me was always pretty locked, I was still shocked that any battle ended up being this close. And to be honest, while I have this as the second stinkiest battle, vibes-wise, Gandalf vs. Dumbledore episode 11 is probably my actual least favorite of the season. Compared to some other bad battles, this one feels extra disappointing since it's more than halfway through the season and at a point where you feel like everyone should have known better. As I mentioned in my analysis, I really remember this one being better, and sure, there are a couple of decent lines, but many more leave me scratching my head, and a few make me say a hard yikes, with Gandalf's Bogart in your closet line being particularly in bad taste. The battle also receives the Dishonorable Award for most random and out-of-place line in any rap, featuring a reference to Mind of Mencia. It's baffling and shows up with no warning, no explanation, and no connection to anything around it, and then is never referenced again. It's truly bizarre, but only barely more bizarre than how much the writers apparently didn't know anything about Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter. Most of the non-Mind of Mencia references just don't work and are poorly researched at best, which is confusing for an internet comedy show where you kind of assume everyone involved is a huge nerd and would know the lore to two of the biggest fantasy franchises ever. Shame all the raps kinda suck, since the battle theming itself is pretty great. I mean, who doesn't want to see two beloved characters, possibly the most famous fictional wizards of all time, rap battle each other? And the production itself is solid, with good costuming and effects throughout, really showcasing how much more budget and staff they now had compared to when they started. But this is pretty much all that puts the battle above BunnyCon for me, since I'd argue the actual rap itself is worse, and the wasted potential on display here is frankly painful. As for the winner of the battle, it's less of a victory and more of a failure to lose, with Peter's Dumbledore ending up less in the red than Lloyd's Gandalf. But for our purposes, a win's a win. And I knew when I told you guys it would be close, but I never imagined it would be literally tied, with the draw option probably playing some sort of spoiler. Fact is, I don't like this one. Number 13. Another episode fighting for the bottom of the podium, and our last medal finisher taking home that rusty, crusty, mud-caked bronze. We have episode 4, Sarah Palin versus Lady Gaga. I said it there, and I'll say it here. Dated. Oh, so dated. As dated as my title card for it already looks. I botched some of that line work. Palin's is fine, I think I nailed the Big Dipper, but what the heck was I on when I did those glasses? Yikes. Anyway, episode 4 is rooted so squarely in the pop culture of early 2010 that you'd need Urban Dictionary open on a second device to understand it, like when the Shakespeare books have modern English on the other page, but we'll get to that topic soon enough. Palin vs. Gaga also gets the dubious distinction of being the episode that nearly killed my channel before it even began, with the script writing and research making me just want to throw my hands in the air and quit. I've had longer scripts since, but they always feel like a comparative breeze, probably because of how much I struggled on this one. I was just so disinterested in resurrecting obscure nonsense surrounding the 2008 presidential campaign, along with the early Lady Gaga fan discourse, while simultaneously getting burned out in the editing process, listening to Lisa Nova's ear-shattering Palin voice on repeat.
Oh boy, look what we have here!
Glad I pushed through though, since I love my channel and I've enjoyed making every other episode, even the BunnyCon one, but really, if the channel was gonna die early, this would have been the moment. And part of that is probably because the battle is bad. Plain and simple. Not fun bad, not massive train wreck bad, not insane choices and nonsensical bars bad, just the regular old boring bad. The performances are weak, the writing kinda sucks, the beat is trash, and the best special effect is this damn caribou head that's supposed to be a moose. Costuming's actually pretty great for what it's worth, thanks to Mary Doodles, who'd just been brought on to what would become her longtime costume and art role. Especially considering the budget, it's kind of a miracle, and that pretty much hints at what saves episode 4 from the very bottom. It's managing some goodwill and being cut a little slack for being arguably the last episode from that absolute poverty era of the show, before they had a real budget, a real production studio, and real crew, and a real idea of what the heck they were even doing with all this. Ironically, or maybe fittingly, this may have also been the sink or swim moment for the actual ERB show as well, as I imagine if this had underperformed, Maker Studios might have ended up passing on the whole thing, or at least second guess committing any considerable amount of time or resources into it. But that underdog spirit can only extend so far. It can excuse the shoddy visuals and any general technical deficiencies, but it can't excuse the general air of homophobia that taints the battle. 2010 was simply a different time, and the general attitudes towards the LGBTQ community are one of the most obvious and blatant differences you'll find in pop culture. Despite setbacks and what some people might say, we really have come a long way in a short time as a culture, and that is something to celebrate. Speaking of culture, as with many of the figures and characters from season 1, Lady Gaga is someone who deserves a do-over. In fact, she may be the single best candidate since she's had a whole ass multi-part career in the time since this episode episode, and a 2025 Lady Gaga portrayal could do so much more than this incredibly one-dimensional 2010 version. It's not even really Nice Peter's or the writer's fault, he actually does a pretty great job all considered. There's just no way anyone could have predicted the poker face meat dress lady would have had more staying power and cultural significance than the largely now forgotten Alaskan governor slash vice presidential candidate she was pitted against. As far as the winner, we had no Epic Lloyd except in cameo form, so instead, Peter ended up defeating the chronologically first guest rapper ever. He doesn't do anything phenomenal, but he sounds amazing compared to Nova, who frankly feels a bit out of her element in a rap setting. And while I hadn't quite figured out this whole YouTube thing yet, and I deleted my first audience poll for whatever unexplained reason, I do know that you guys also had Gaga winning pretty handily. Number 12. Just outside the bottom 3, we've got the Battle of the Napoleons, episode 9. And what a nothing battle we have here. If you follow the philosophy that doing nothing is worse than failing, then this is actually the worst episode. And yeah, it just might be, because fourth worst? What even is that? You sucked so bad you didn't even podium for sucking. You're bad in a way that no one will remember how bad you are, which is not very Napoleon in either context. An unforgettable movie, an unforgettable leader, and the most forgettable battle of the season. If you watch my video on it, you'll remember how many times I gave a line just a neutral nothing score. That's all that's really notable in it, the absence of anything much of interest. Boring fight with boring weak disses, alright but nothing special performances, and uninteresting sets and special effects besides the opening cavalry charge. It's literally the stereotypical mid-season filler episode or the middle of side B filler song. Ah well, they can't all be zingers. Lloyd eked out a win as Bonaparte, literally only doing so in the last 4 bars where he landed 2 good lines after doing absolutely not a damn thing for the previous 20. By all accounts, Peter should have won his Dynamite, but he spent so much of the battle making awful puns that it canceled out the couple solid lines he did land. So not a strong win, but Lloyd does take it here. And I was pretty surprised you guys agreed, with Bonaparte overwhelmingly taking the audience score. For some reason, I assumed Dynamite would be the favorite, but gosh, I guess not. The one that started it all is getting by on pretty little other than the pure low-budget charm of the thing, because Lennon O'Reilly kinda sucks. It's hard to be too critical of a rap battle that wasn't originally even released and branded as such, and for what it is, you have to love it. But if you're not grading on the steepest of curves, it's only really watchable as a historical novelty. As I mentioned in my own first video ever, which also isn't very good and is only maybe worthwhile for my Bill O'Reilly Heartless visual, I consider this more of a pilot, the episode 0 proof of concept than the true episode 1. And even at the time, it really was the second try that kickstarted ERB's popularity, not Lennon O'Reilly. You saw Vader mustache, you got hooked. You saw this one and you went, oh, well, that's neat. Again, not hating at all, because this is a zero-budget, golden age YouTube video, and it must be cherished and protected at all costs as a national treasure. But also, like National Treasure, I don't know, maybe squeeze a little lemon juice on it, make that thing fresh. It's been 15 years. ERB could do a full reimagining with all the Beatles versus, I don't know, maybe O'Reilly, Larry King, Anderson Cooper, Joe Rogan maybe? Hell, Alex Jones if you want to get nuts. Just spitballing, but I see the potential, and I think it could be a slam dunk, especially for like a 20th anniversary celebration or something. But what's there to say? This battle is history more than entertainment. So much so that it's almost unrankable. But here it is, ranked anyway. And Lloyd as Bill O'Reilly receives the honor of winning the first ever battle. Nice Peter, he gets better, don't you worry, but in the very beginning, Lloyd was simply better at rapping on a technical level. When you watch episode 1, it's clear both of them have musical talent, but only one of them has been practicing his freestyling. Bonus fact, this battle is the only one of mine to not feature a title card or the kid, as this production actually predated the character. So here's some bonus art for you all. Bask in the glory. And audience polls? What, are you crazy? I could barely edit. You think I knew how to set up a poll? Get out of town. Anyway, we all gotta start somewhere, right? Number 10. Episode 15, Nice Peter vs. Epic Lloyd, has to be the hardest of the season to properly rank. On the one hand, Lloyd and Peter have had the benefit of 14 episodes to hone their craft, and it is a proper season finale with the full funding and backing of Maker Studios behind it. That is to say, the battle both looks and sounds good from a technical level, and you get this whole wacky superhero slash God's Messiah appearance by Kasim G that felt crazy big budget and hype at the time, but now has lost so much context and looks so cheap it's basically a totally unimpressive non sequitur. Which brings me to the core issue of the battle. How was one supposed to react to 15-year-old synthetic rat beef? Sure, all the other battles are also manufactured beef. It's the entire conceit behind the show after all. But there's an extra level of weirdness that comes from the creators of the show about fake rap drama having their own fake falling out in rap form that doesn't play the same as the regular episodes. I mean, for God's sake, Lloyd fake cries and calls Peter's vlog gay, and Peter calls Lloyd a midget who looks like a thumb. What the hell am I doing watching this? It's not good, that's for sure. But there is a certain interesting novelty in it that you almost can't look away from. I think, like Lennon O'Reilly, it almost ends up more a piece of YouTube history rather than an actual piece of entertainment, although episode where they announce season 2 has an official channel isn't really as impressive as literally the first battle ever, so on that basis alone, I think you could argue that this should be below Lennon O'Reilly. But I think there's some sort of value in this very weird meta approach to the episode in a series that's generally played things pretty straight up till now that makes it stand out as unique, if not necessarily good. Just cracking the top 10 feels about right for its placement. It's not the regularly scheduled programming that you want or expect out of the series, but Lloyd vs. Peter is at least a fascinating experiment that builds the lore and acted as a conclusion to the first season and a bridge from the Nice Peter YouTube channel to the official ERB channel. And you guys overwhelmingly agreed that Lloyd won, providing a bit of perfect symmetry to the season. I love it when a plan comes together. Number 9. Also squeaking into the top 10, we have the third episode, Chuck Norris vs. Abe Lincoln. I consider it in a way the finale to the original ERB trilogy, with Gaga Palin being the spin-off no one wanted. In these earliest episodes, you catch this glimpse into what was possible, or more accurately, what was within their means before they had the backing of a production company and access to a real studio and equipment and a production crew. They're special because they're something you or I, or at least anyone with a camera, a couple friends, and basic knowledge about rap music and pop culture can make. Hell, with advances in technology, most of us could probably make something more impressive now, and the rap battle fan community has proved that tenfold. That's not just the charm of the first ERB episodes, but of early YouTube as a whole. It's the anyone can cook from Ratatouille message. Not that literally anybody can succeed on YouTube, but that success can come from anywhere with the right combination of ideas, and the barrier of entry has never quite been so low since. It's a unique feeling that I'd say ERB starts losing around episode 4 and which is fully evaporated by like episode 10 at the very latest. As far as the battle itself, it gets the job done, I suppose. With the extreme low budget, there's nothing really to write home about effects-wise, and I'm not really into the choice that is Crunk Lincoln or the choice to have Chuck Norris only speak in Chuck Norris jokes. Also, I didn't mention it in my analysis, but it really bothers me that Norris switches between first and third person for some of the lines, but we'll chalk that up to there not really being a script editor yet. Despite all that, there's a certain goofy fun to the whole episode that makes it hard to be mad at. There's certainly a universe where epic rap battles is just a silly little trilogy that some improv kids made as a lark, and in that universe, this would be a fine enough send-off. Luckily, we live in a superior ERB timeline where we don't have to accept Lincoln Norris as anything more than what it is, which is a decent to below average episode. And Peter won here. First time in the series, Lloyd was restricted to using Chuck Norris jokes, and at that point, things are pretty much unwinnable for you, even if you are Chuck Norris. As for the audience score, well, just as with the ERB itself, I wasn't quite there yet, but I'd have to assume you all would agree, since there's a reason Lincoln ends up being a recurring character and Norris, well, does not. Number 8. If I had to point to an episode whose placement here personally shocked me the most, it would have to be this one. Episode 12, Dr. Seuss vs. William Shakespeare. I remembered loving this as a kid. It was probably one of my favorites at some point. I remember the visuals, especially for the Cat in the Hat portion, being borderline magical. And I remembered being blown away by George Watsky's fast rapping in Shakespeare's second verse. Now, to cut kid, or I guess more kid, me, since I'm the WW kid, I may have created a Lil Wayne situation for myself without realizing. Oh well, too late to turn back now. But anyway, to cut some slack, those visuals do still hold up, and Watsky's second verse is pretty solid, even if fast rapping has lost its novelty for me in the many years since 2011. But kid me, and also maybe adult me, may have also been blind to some of the flaws of this battle, although even at the time, I think I was forcing myself to try and enjoy Lloyd's Thing 1 and 2 verse. Watching the battle now with fresh eyes, most of Shakespeare's lines are a smokescreen that falls apart under any sort of research and examination, and Watsky could probably have done a bit more in the acting department to embody the character. It's kinda just George Watsky in theater costume doing a mediocre English accent. Like, the flow and some of the bars are great, but I'd be hard-pressed to say I really get much of a committed William Shakespeare impersonation out of this performance. The Cat in the Hat is actually mostly fine, but the appearance of Things 1 and 2 is an unsalvageable train wreck that derails completely, and Dr. Seuss himself is portrayed by Mickey Meyer as someone who's both quite special and quite quite high, and it ends up pretty bizarre and off-putting. I wish more about this battle held up. It was a heartbreaking moment to realize I kinda overall didn't like it that much, since clearly it received a lot of money and effort. There are some moments of greatness on display, but as both these authors have conveyed in their works, growing up is accepting changes to yourself and to the world and to how those two things interact, which is kinda beautiful in its own way. And to end my soliloquy, let's talk about the audience score, where you guys were with me having Shakespeare win and finally giving a point to the guest rappers. Number 7. We're at the halfway point of this list, which means we've hit a battle which does a lot right without being astounding, and I'd make the argument that episode 6, Bieber vs. Beethoven, is a pretty great representation of a standard epic rap battle episode. It's more or less the baseline for me of what a battle should do. The theming's good, modern pop musician versus classical composer, the beat's good with the sampling of For Elise during Bieber's verses and Beethoven's ninth during Beethoven's, adding some depth through the music. And the character work, costumes, and props are all pretty solid, especially for the front half of season 1. I especially love them actually breaking this old piano. All that said, as with most of the battles, and especially that first half of season 1, episode 6 ultimately does suffer from some pretty weak raps. While not the worst by any means, we do get some pretty awkward and uncomfortable bars around what amounted to a teenager's sex life and sexuality and a bunch of general, non-specific bragging. The lines are salvaged though by the performances, with both Peter and guest Alex Farnham delivering some pretty solid impersonations, and I actually surprised myself having Alex win as Bieber. You guys did not agree with me here, and I really understand. Beethoven simply has more aura, and the backing track on his section sounds way cooler. But I'm sticking with my guns on this one. I really do feel Bieber was a little more consistent, and I feel like Beethoven relied too much on his reputation rather than providing actual tangible disses, even if his closing Little White Usher line is pretty devastating. Number 6. Frankly, this one and Bieber Beethoven could easily switch, since Columbus vs. Kirk episode 14 stands for me as another average battle with not much bad and not much amazing. It really is up to you whether you like the low budget charm of the earlier episode or the higher budget sheen of the later one. The deciding factor for me would be that episode 14 features Lloyd's Captain Kirk impression, which I think stands as secretly one of the better ones ever committed to film. I mean, he just absolutely nails William Shatner's bizarre, stuttering speech cadence and over-exaggerated movements and facial expressions, while managing to make it all flow within the context of a rap. Columbus vs. Kirk is a funny one because it's probably the second most forgettable battle of the season for me behind the Napoleons, but also it's not bad or anything. There's just not much to say. It's, as I said in the episode proper, a meat and potatoes battle. Costumes look good, couple good disses, couple big misses, and we're done. The biggest issue on display is how shallow it all is. Sure, shallow raps are something ERB consistently struggles with, but here it reminds me of Gandalf and Dumbledore. You have two people who the general public is very familiar with, and the exact type of matchup this show is made for. Do something. At least they don't botch the lore like they did in that one, but saying nothing almost feels as bad. So while the episode doesn't do anything egregiously wrong, it feels like a bit of a letdown when you think of the potential that's there. Like with Easter Bunny Con, sure it sucks, but the bar was literally underground. No one expected Easter Bunny to be spitting fire. But Columbus and Kirk, it should be a battle for the ages, and instead it feels like a Tuesday. Along with Lady Gaga, Kirk and Columbus need a major do-over down the line. As for the win, I was not shocked that Lloyd won as Kirk. It's just a more interesting portrayal than Peter's bog standard take on an Italian Renaissance man, and he manages a couple great knockout lines. And it looks like you guys generally agreed with me, and I'm not surprised because I feel like being memorable is really half the battle on these kinds of votes. Number 5. And cracking into the top 5, we have basically the one that started it all, episode 2, aka the real episode 1 in my eyes, featuring Guy Whose Name You Can't Say and Adolf Hitler. Whoops, I think I got that backwards. As for its placement this high, I mean, you can feel it, right? And no, I won't make some dumbass force joke here. I mean, seriously, this battle has the sauce. It has aura. It's special. It probably has some sort of element of accidental genius in there, and you get this sense of serendipity that all these pieces came together to make this video. Maker Studios took an interest in ERB because of this, not because of Lincoln Norris and not because of Lyndon O'Reilly. Whatever positive traits those battles had, it was evident that they weren't something you could build a multi-season, big-budget series off of. Whereas this, even though it's micro-budget, even though it's simple, it all clicks. The theming is the exact stuff ERB was built for. It's possibly a theme that they haven't actually surpassed in the 100 or so episodes since. The two darkest of Dark Lords, one from history, one from pop culture. And there's this extra aspect of it being slightly taboo, slightly punk, or at least part of an alternative subculture that lends it a certain edge. Sure, the costumes are a little goofy, with Lloyd in too big a suit that reminds him of that Nathan For You episode, and Vader's face mask being all out of proportion so that he has a squished face. Thank you, Timey, for pointing that out. I can never unsee it. But you get this black and white filter over the big mustache man, and you get the classic Vader voice, and you even get a special effect with that carbonite bath. All elements that are so simple in production and yet are so effectively implemented. Add to that a really solid beat and better raps than you'd expect, especially from Lloyd, who, and it's a bit unfortunate to say this about someone, but who was born for this role. And in short, we have a video that succeeds as a proper launchpad for a young channel, a mission statement that can attract fans who will get the ball rolling, the first domino on the way to amassing millions of subscribers and billions of views. Lennon O'Reilly exists as a dusty historical novelty, but this episode still lives as a key early piece of modern pop culture. That's the difference, and today's view counts of the episodes reflects that. As for the scores, I also had Lloyd win here, just as with Lennon O'Reilly, so no matter how you slice it, Lloyd truly did win the first battle of the show. His performance here is the perfect brand of over-the-top maniacal that you need to portray this figure, and he drops some great bars, even without going easy and grading on the early episode writing curve. And Vader isn't half bad either, especially for the budget they had of about $50. He looks and sounds great, but I do think he has some pretty weak lines in comparison, though they still get the job done. A fun time all around, and easily to me the best battle of the original trilogy. As for the audience, again, I didn't think to ask yet, but my gut says it would be somewhere in the realm of a 50-50, maybe leaning 60-40 for the mustache. Number 4. If there's one battle this season that keeps me up at night, it might be episode 5, Kim Jong-il versus the world powers of the WWF. It's the episode out of all of them that I feel I may have called wrong. You guys overwhelmingly voted this one for Macho Man and the Hulkster, and looking back, maybe I was a little too kind to Timothy DeLaGhetto's bars. I have our second guest of all time winning here against Lloyd and Peter by just one measly point, and looking back, I have some doubts if it at least shouldn't have been a tie. That said, it may just be my Macho Man bias showing. I love Lloyd's portrayal here, and I made it clear in my scoring video, but that love may be in fact giving me some perpetual tunnel vision. Fact is, Kim's lines aren't bad at all, and frankly, on a technical level, I do think Tim just has a better flow and performance style than definitely Season 1 Nice Peter, and probably also Season 1 Epic Lloyd. After all, the guy was actively in the rap game at the time, and his skill does show. And Hogan's lines really just aren't that good, and while part of me enjoys how silly it all is, his costume and portrayal in combination does a lot of work sinking what could have otherwise been a pretty easy win for the wrestlers. In the context of the season, episode 5 is basically where the budget kicks in. It's almost a soft series reboot where the scope has been magnified to a ridiculous degree. Compare this to Palin vs. Gaga and it's just night and day. The costumes are much more intricate, Kim shoots a damn rocket launcher, and there's even a whole intermission leading to the first tag team of the series. Regardless if I did call it right or not, the battle's a great time, and any complaints I have are minor and inconsequential compared to everything I could praise about it. And I appreciate that of all the episodes, this is the one that got the special edition remaster treatment to breathe a little extra life into it years later. It tells me that the ERB team shares my fondness for it. Oh yeah. Number 3. I know this one's going to be at least a few of your guys' pick for the season favorite, and know that part of me agrees with you, and that if it's any consolation, it did at least make the podium and place in 3rd. Einstein vs. Hawking very much deserves heaps of praise, and it almost feels like a disservice not giving gold to a battle like this which contains no real flaws. Good disses, good beat, a good guess with MC Mr. Napkins, and a fun twist on the rap with Nice Peter using autotune for Hawking's voice. Sure, some lines don't quite land, but it does also feature the Yo Mama joke of the series, and there's a great attention to detail when it comes to the more scientific lines, where you can tell actual research went into making sure they were accurate. On top of it all, the episode still has some of that low-budget charm without feeling cheap, almost the perfect evolution of what we'd seen in the first few episodes. All that keeps it down here for me is that I simply like the next 2 battles more and think they just have a little more going on. At the end of the day, this is still a very simple battle. I'd argue possibly the peak of what they could have achieved at the time without receiving more major production company backing. Again, I see the alternate world where something like this is the grand finale, and while not a bad world, I am happy we ended up with the one where ERB got to push beyond what was possible for an indie micro-budget channel. As for scores, Peter took the win on this one in what was a very close battle, with both him and Zach Sherwin pulling off some of the higher scores of the season. And I was surprised you guys were with me on this. Though not a landslide, I had expected things to be way closer, or for Einstein to even receive more votes, but I guess the Yo Mama joke was just that effective. Number 2. Ben Franklin versus the Pitchman is a personal favorite of mine, and I get the vibe that, while a lot of fans generally like it, they don't hold it in the same regard that I do. And that's fine, but I also think y'all are sleeping on Colin J. Sweeney, don't forget the J. What an absolute legend. Shows up for one verse of one battle and drops a god-tier performance as Billy Mays and then just dips forever. That's not to say Lloyd and Peter dropped the ball. It's actually unfortunate for Lloyd on this one, since his Ben Franklin performance would have won pretty much any other battle this season. He looks, sounds, and raps excellently. And Peter was teamed with Sweeney as the ShamWow guy in a fairly brilliant, if bittersweet, bit of theming. He pretty much just needed to not completely fall on his face, and he doesn't, though he probably needed that team assist for the point since he is decent, but also the weakest part of the battle. Overall, even if nothing else about this episode worked, the strong performances would have sent it to at least the top half of the list. But luckily, pretty much everything else works as well. Good costumes, a good beat, some solid effects. My only real critique would be the somewhat loose theming with, I think, the idea being figures revolving around money in some way. It's alright though, it plays well enough, and the matchup has this interesting air of, who would think to have these guys face off? That's only really matched this season by Easter Bunny and Genghis Khan, but unlike with that one, it actually sticks the landing. Again, I couldn't believe that you guys agree with me on this one, with episode 10's audience score being one of the most split of the season, and the draw option receiving the highest percentage here than out of any other episode. And I really do get that. With this many good bars and these great of performances, it becomes pretty tough to pick a favorite. Number 1. Talk about a dark horse candidate. This battle wasn't even on my radar when I started this series, and frankly, still never even entered it until I was actively rewatching and scoring it for my episode. But like a nuclear stealth submarine or SEAL Team 6, it snuck up and got me. The living proof that Kid Me was dumb is that I never respected this battle before, and I'm happy I can finally remedy that glaring character flaw. Episode 13 pretty much has it all. A fantastic beat, arguably the best of the season, solid theming with famous tough guy versus famous nice guy, and great visuals including Mr. Rogers breakdancing and this moment in the boxing ring where Mr. Rogers delivers the coup de grace that derails Mr. T for the rest of the battle. Speaking of the raps themselves, there is an argument that Mr. T's are weak since his second verse is pretty terrible, but as I mentioned in my scoring video, to me, that failure adds to the battle as a whole because it almost feels like Mr. T is getting more desperate and off balance as he realizes he's losing, which may be a misread from me or unintentional genius from the ERB team, but to me it all comes together and works really well. But let's not bury the lead. Nice Peter freaking crushes it as Mr. Rogers with the MVP crown of the season. 17 points, including 4 3-pointers and no negatives. It's frankly an absurd performance in a season where I did the math and the average for all the scores was 3.3 and the median was 4. It's such an insane outlier, it's unreal. And it makes me feel a little bad for Distorm, who puts on a solid enough performance himself as Mr. T. I like his presence, I like his flow, and of all the rappers, and especially of all the guests, he's not the one that I feel deserves to end up in the red and with a 19-point deficit, but them's the breaks, and he'll be back. So, winner in my favorite battle of the season, Nice Peter, who in the span of a year developed from clunky, messy John Lennon bars to the certified fresh raps master. You'll love to see it. And you guys unanimously agreed with me on this one, with Rogers receiving 100% of the votes, as he should. What a beautiful day in the neighborhood. And that's the ranking. Let's take a look at our running totals. We have Nice Peter at 6 points, Epic Lloyd also at 6 points, and the guest rappers at 4 points. And I'm a bit surprised things are this close. While Nice Peter appeared as a rapper in literally all 15 episodes, Lloyd appeared in all of them but only rapped in 11, and we only had guest rappers in 7 of them. And I expected that the end scores would more closely reflect that, but all considered, I'd call things dead even going into season 2, where we'll see a lot more Peter, a lot more Lloyd, and a hell of a lot more guests. And before wrapping up, a huge shout out to Poner and Timey, who have been supporting me on Patreon and Ko-fi and who have been amazing people to bounce ideas off of and to provide helpful ERB related info. To round out the season, Poner just wanted to shout out Mr. J's Dwight Schrute versus Pol Pot for being a great battle that captures a lot of that season 1 ERB style and pays homage to that aesthetic while still being entertaining in its own right. And Timey had a bit of a retrospective on season 1, so here's what she had to say about it. Season 1 is such a wild ride. I think a lot lot of my ERB nostalgia comes from the first season, right back to when I first watched Vader vs. Hitler in the 2nd grade just because I was a Star Wars fan and it had Darth Vader in it. While I do think Season 2 is where ERB really started getting noticed on the YouTube landscape, Season 1 laid the groundwork for a lot of the rap battle tropes and standards we've come to know and love. Despite its duds, and there are a lot of noticeable duds, I would say it's still an incredibly strong start to the series, especially with the moments you can pinpoint when the crew starts improving their style, getting a higher budget, and starting to experiment with what can be done. I will always admire how far rap battles have come since then, some even probably surpassing ERB themselves. But there's a certain magic to Season 1 that just cannot be truly recaptured. It's early 2010s internet at its finest. Ken the Hat should have totally won, by the way. And yeah, maybe you're right on that one, Timey, but thank you so much for your support and for this analysis. It's a perfect eulogy to Season 1 that captures my feelings exactly, and which I couldn't have said better myself. I'm also really excited to get into Season 2, but I'll miss some of this low-budget scrappiness that Season 1 has to offer. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, comment if you agree or disagree with my list, and check out all the other individual scoring videos if you haven't to see how we got here. Donate on Patreon or Ko-fi to receive some sick custom art and a name drop, and I'll catch y'all next time.